In 1963, Chevrolet built an engine so strong it nearly embarrassed its own V8s. It wasn't some loud, flashy, chrome-covered monster, though. It was a straight six, the humble 292, designed for trucks but secretly capable of so much more. The engineers knew this thing had the muscle to totally shake up GM's entire lineup. But guess what? Corporate basically buried it before it ever really had the chance to shine. This was no ordinary six-cylinder. It was seriously overbuilt, underappreciated, and dangerously close to changing what American performance meant. But why on earth did GM hide its own masterpiece? The answer lies in a mix of pure torque, some messy office politics, and, believe it or not, a genuine fear of success. In the early 1960s, Chevy had this major problem that they just couldn't ignore. Their old stovebolt inline-six, a design dating back to 1929, was running out of steam. By the dawn of the new decade, it was underpowered, inefficient, and hopelessly outdated next to the newer six-cylinder Ford and Chrysler were putting out. So in 1962, GM's engineers got the green light to start from scratch. Build a modern straight six that could power everything from half-ton pickups to delivery vans. But what they created was far more than an update. It was honestly a revolution on six cylinders. The whole project's roots actually tie back to Edward N. Cole, the same brilliant engineering mind behind the legendary small block V8. Cole always believed that an inline-six could be just as smooth, powerful, and advanced as a V8 if you just build it the right way. And the team down at Chevrolet's Flint Engine plant totally took that philosophy to heart. They started with a clean sheet of paper, designing what would become the Chevrolet 292 cubic inch inline-six, part of the shiny new Turbo Thrift engine family launched in 1963. The specs told a quiet story of brute strength: a bore of 3.875 inches, a stroke of 4.125, the longest ever in a Chevy engine, and a massive block with 7 main bearings. It displaced 292 cubic inches, or about 4.8 liters, and cranked out 165 horsepower with a walloping 280 pound-feet of torque at just 1,600 RPM. To put that in perspective, many of Chevy's small block V8s of the era made similar torque, but at higher revs. Even though it only weighed maybe 40 pounds more than a 283 V8, the 292 pulled like a small diesel train. It wasn't designed to scream, it was built to shove. That made it perfect for trucks, but it also hinted at something more. See, beneath its practical image was an engine with the raw strength, balance, and durability to compete far beyond its intended class. The irony? GM didn't actually see that as good news. What they had accidentally built wasn't just a workhorse, it was a potential V8 killer. If you pop the hood on a Chevy truck from the mid-1960s and spot that tall, straight block with the fuel pump mounted high on the passenger side, you're looking at something deceptively simple. The 292 didn't shout for attention like a chrome-covered V8, but every inch of it was built for punishment. This engine was a mechanical ox, overbuilt, understressed, and engineered with the kind of durability usually reserved for heavy-duty diesels. Let's start with the crankshaft. Most six cylinders of the time used cast cranks to save cost, but the 292 came standard with a forged steel crankshaft, stronger, denser, and far more resistant to fatigue. That crank was supported by 7 main bearings, one for nearly every cylinder, an unusually high number for a production engine in the early 60s. Where competitors like Ford's 240 inline-six had only 4 or 5, Chevrolet went for 7, turning the 292's bottom end into a tank. It could take abuse, high loads, lugging, even racing RPM without flinching. The stroke was another clue to its character. At 4.125 inches, it was one of the longest ever used in a Chevy engine. That long stroke meant piston speed was high, and torque came on immediately, right off idle. This engine didn't need to rev to make power. It delivered its muscle early, with 280 pound-feet of torque available at just 1,600 revolutions per minute. The 292 made trucks feel like they had half again as many cylinders. But the real genius was balance. Inline-sixes are naturally balanced engines, with pistons moving in opposing pairs that cancel vibration. No need for balance shafts or extra counterweights, just pure smooth rotation. Mechanics love that simplicity. Fewer moving parts meant less friction and fewer failures. And because the 292's block and internals were overbuilt, it could run nearly forever. Many of these engines went 300,000 miles or more on basic maintenance. It was a rare mix of brute force and elegance. The 292 didn't just run strong, it ran smooth, cool, and for decades. And in an era obsessed with V8s, that quiet endurance was its greatest power. When people talk about performance, they usually talk about horsepower. Big numbers, big revs, big bragging rights. But torque, that invisible twist that gets the wheels moving, is what really wins the day on the street or at the job site. And that's exactly where the Chevrolet 292 outsmarted GM's own V8s. It wasn't about top speed or redline power. It was about pure, immediate force at low RPM, the kind that made trucks leap off the line and trailers feel lighter than they should. In 1963, the 292 rolled out with a pretty conservative factory rating of 165 horsepower. On paper, that didn't sound impressive next to the 283 cubic inch small block V8, which made 195 horsepower in base form. But the torque figures, they told a totally different story. The 283 delivered around 285 pound-feet at 2,200 revolutions per minute. A near match, 280 pound-feet, but it hit that number a full 600 RPM earlier. In real-world driving, that difference was everything. A 292-powered truck didn't need to rev high or downshift to move. That super long 4.125-inch stroke gave the 292 diesel-like grunt. In a world where most engines made their best power above 3,000 RPM, this straight six was doing its best work below 2,000. Step on the throttle, and it responded instantly, delivering the kind of low-end muscle that felt almost electric in how quickly it came on. Drivers described it as pulling like a tractor, and honestly, they weren't even exaggerating. The other secret weapon was its smoothness. Because of the inline-six's natural balance, the 292 could sustain heavy loads without the shudder or vibration you'd get from a comparable V8 under strain. It felt solid, composed, like it had more to give, and in many ways it did. While GM never officially admitted it, early dyno tests showed the 292 could comfortably produce over 200 horsepower. That kind of potential in a six-cylinder was dangerous for a company whose reputation and profits were built around 8. When Chevrolet launched the 292 in 1963, it didn't exactly go into flashy muscle cars or performance icons. Instead, it was tucked quietly under the hoods of Chevy's Workhorses, 3/4-ton and 1-ton trucks. The decision made total sense on paper, of course. The 292 was all about torque, and torque was exactly what truck buyers desperately wanted. But that placement also sealed its fate. It was born into a life of hauling instead of racing, of carrying loads instead of winning headlines. You could find the 292 in C20 and C30 pickups, massive Suburbans, and later in Chevrolet's G-Series vans and those big old-school bus chassis. If a vehicle had to move serious weight, the 292 was usually right there. Fleet buyers loved it because it started every morning, pulled hard all day, and didn't quit. Farmers, construction crews, and delivery companies swore by its reliability. Mechanics praised it for being simple to work on. No timing belts, no fragile aluminum heads, just cast iron honesty. You could run it hard, maybe even skip an oil change or two, and it would still just come back for more punishment. The 292 also made its mark beyond trucks. Through the 1970s, it powered tons of Chevrolet and GMC vans, the exact same kind that became the backbone of tradesmen's businesses and, believe it or not, even the whole custom van movement. Under all that shag carpet and pinstripe paint, a 292 was often chugging away, smooth and steady, mile after mile. It also found use in industrial equipment, irrigation pumps, forklifts, and stationary generators. Wherever reliability mattered more than glamour, the 292 found a home. But GM had just built an engine strong enough to rival its small blocks, and then limited it to the least glamorous part of its lineup. The 230 and 256s went into cars like the Nova and Chevelle, where they got the public's attention. The 292, the strongest of them all, stayed hidden in the work zone. Whether by coincidence or by design, Chevrolet kept the most powerful inline-six it ever made far away from its performance spotlight. The result? An engine loved by workers and ignored by marketers, an unsung hero built for duty, not glory. But GM had just built an engine strong enough to rival its small blocks, and then limited it to the least glamorous part of its lineup. The 230 and 256s went into cars like the Nova and Chevelle, where they got the public's attention. The 292, the strongest of them all, stayed hidden in the work zone. Whether by coincidence or by design, Chevrolet kept the most powerful inline-six it ever made far away from its performance spotlight. The result? An engine loved by workers and ignored by marketers, an unsung hero built for duty, not glory. So by the mid-1960s, Chevrolet's identity revolved around one thing: the V8. The small block wasn't just an engine, it was a brand within a brand. Ads shouted about horsepower in cubic inches, not torque curves or efficiency. The V8 symbolized power, performance, and profit. So when an inline-six like the 292 started showing signs that it could compete on real-world strength, the higher-ups at General Motors didn't see opportunity. They saw a threat to their golden goose. Chevrolet's marketing division had spent a decade building the V8 myth. Cars like the Impala SS, the Chevelle, and later the Camaro made the 8-cylinder engine a cultural icon. Every brochure, every dealership pitch, every magazine ad reinforced one idea: real performance meant a V8 under the hood. The company wasn't about to muddy that message by promoting a six that could outpull some of those engines in everyday driving. Internally, GM executives were also dealing with corporate politics. Each division, Chevy, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, and Cadillac, guarded its performance image. Chevy's 6-cylinder success risked stepping on other divisions' toes. It also risked blurring the carefully defined hierarchy within GM, where each brand was supposed to serve a distinct purpose. The 292's raw potential didn't fit neatly into that corporate puzzle. And then there was the business side of things. Producing V8s was highly profitable. They shared tooling, had strong aftermarket demand, and fueled GM's image as the performance leader of Detroit. The inline-six, no matter how capable, didn't promise the same margins. It was cheaper to build, but offered fewer upsell opportunities. Pushing it too hard could have cannibalized V8 sales and disrupted that lucrative ecosystem. So what did they do? GM quietly kept the 292 confined to trucks and industrial equipment, giving it little to no promotion. While engineers admired its strength, the marketing department treated it like a background player. The irony here is absolutely unmistakable. The same company that built the engine to be nearly indestructible refused to let it genuinely shine. All in the name of corporate order and pure profit, Chevrolet effectively buried one of its most capable creations, an engine that, honestly, could have rewritten its own entire performance legacy. So even though General Motors kept the 292 totally out of the spotlight, hot rodders and grassroots racers eventually figured out what this thing could really do. Word spread quietly through garages and speed shops that big old Chevy 6 could take abuse like nothing else in its class. Its 7 main bearings and forged crank made it nearly bulletproof, and its long stroke gave it instant torque, perfect for drag launches or pulling competitions. For gearheads who liked building something different, the 292 became an underground favorite. In the late 1960s and early 70s, a few smart racers started experimenting with modified 292s. They ported the heads, added bigger carburetors, and bumped compression. With a mild cam and a little tuning, these engines were easily clearing 250 horsepower, numbers that absolutely rivaled small block V8s of the same era. Builders discovered that the 292's bottom end could handle serious stress. Forced induction setups, from roots blowers to turbochargers, showed how much hidden strength the engine had. Many of these builds ran reliably for years without needing major overhauls. The aftermarket community saw this and responded with huge enthusiasm. Companies like Clifford Performance and Offenhauser began offering intakes, headers, and cams specifically for Chevrolet's inline-sixes. Enthusiasts realized that a properly tuned 292 could surprise unsuspecting V8 owners at the strip. It wasn't the fastest revving engine, but its low-end thrust and indestructible design made it a different kind of performer, one that combined brute force with mechanical grace. Meanwhile, on farms and in small-town machine shops, the 292 earned a separate kind of respect. It powered everything from irrigation pumps to air compressors, running thousands of hours with little more than oil and spark plug changes. That kind of endurance gave it a reputation as an unbreakable engine long before the term became a marketing slogan. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the 292 had become a legitimate cult favorite, part of a small but devoted community that saw beauty in simplicity and strength. GM might have overlooked it, but enthusiasts didn't. They recognized what corporate suits ignored. The 292 wasn't just an engine built for work. It was a mechanical masterpiece waiting for someone bold enough to unleash it. By the late 1970s, the automotive world had changed. The horsepower wars were over, and the priorities that once defined Detroit's golden era had shifted overnight. Emission laws grew tighter, fuel prices soared, and efficiency, not brute strength, became the new selling point. For an engine like the Chevrolet 292, which was built purely on raw torque and displacement, the winds were definitely no longer blowing in its favor. As those regulations started piling up, GM was forced to tone down its entire lineup. The 292's compression ratio dropped, timing curves softened, and horsepower ratings shrank. By the mid-1970s, the same engine that once delivered 165 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque was reduced to about 120 horsepower and 215 pound-feet. Catalytic converters and leaner carburation tamed its personality even further. The engine still worked hard, but it didn't sound or feel like the powerhouse it once was. Production costs also played a role in its slow fade. The 292's tall block and heavy internals made it more expensive to produce than GM's newer, lighter engines. As small V8s and later V6s became more efficient, there was less incentive to keep the Big Six alive. Trucks that once relied on it began shifting towards small block V8s, which could meet emission standards more easily and offered better marketing appeal. By the late 1980s, GM was phasing the 292 out entirely. The final examples were produced around 1988 for Chevrolet and GMC trucks, quietly ending a 25-year run. But while production stopped, the legend didn't. The 292 earned a second life among enthusiasts, farmers, and restoration builders who valued reliability over refinement. Its simple design, massive torque, and long lifespan made it a symbol of mechanical honesty, an engine that did its job without complaint. Today, those who've owned one rarely forget it. Ask around at a rural truck show, and you'll still hear stories of 292s that ran for decades without a rebuild. In an industry obsessed with constant innovation, the 292's legacy is this perfect reminder that endurance is its own unique kind of brilliance. It didn't die because it failed. It faded away because it never quite fit the corporate narrative. Okay, so imagine this for just a second. What if Chevrolet had actually unleashed the 292 during the muscle car era instead of just hiding it in trucks? Just think of a Chevelle or a Nova powered by this super torquey, overbuilt inline-six that could genuinely outpull V8s right off the line. The whole story of American performance might have taken a totally different turn, right? The 292 had all the ingredients: durability, perfect balance, and serious instant torque. But it just never got that chance to prove itself on the main stage. Instead, it lived this quiet, blue-collar life under hoods coated in dust and grease, while all its amazing potential went totally unnoticed by the mainstream. If GM had promoted the 292 as a serious performance engine, it could have been a completely different story. That long 4.125-inch stroke and bulletproof bottom end were perfect for boost. In an age when superchargers and turbos were just beginning to catch on, the 292 was built to handle it. With forced induction and a little tuning, it could have easily topped 300 horsepower, delivering instant thrust without needing to scream past 6,000 RPM. It would have flattened you into the seat at half the revs of a V8. But Chevrolet's loyalty to the V8 empire sealed its fate. No marketing, no performance trim, not even a badge to hint at what it could do. The 292 was quietly sentenced to a life of labor. And that's the irony. True innovations don't always fail. Sometimes they're just ignored. Today, the 292 stands as more than a workhorse. It's a cult legend. Builders have pushed stock blocks past 600 horsepower, and parts suppliers still thrive on its legacy. Yet the question lingers. What if GM had unleashed it? Would the 292 have rewritten muscle car history? That's all from today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.